I am all about vacations, but I will not be taking my family on a cruise. Okay, so Netflix ran a documentary, a 3-part docuseries that you should check out, but I'll kind of run it down here, but still, it's very interesting. On Amy Bradley and her disappearance off of a Royal Caribbean cruise in 1998. The trip was meant to celebrate her recent college graduation and like her future pursuit of a master's degree in sports psychology. But the celebration quickly turned to tragedy when she vanished in the early morning hours on March 24th as the ship was preparing to dock in Curacao. So on the Netflix documentary, they ran through 3 of the major theories about what happened to Amy. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because some new news has come out, but first I want to cover what the 3 leading theories were. So first off, theory number 1 was she either fell or jumped overboard. Now, if you watch this documentary, like she could go out on her balcony, but it was a pretty tall wall. I guess most of those ships have that. I don't know that for a fact, and I never will because I'll never go on one. But I don't think she could have just fallen over. So she would have had to have jumped. But the initial suspicion by the authorities and some of the cruise ship staff was that Amy either fell overboard accidentally or died by suicide by jumping. The evidence for that theory was that Amy was last definitively seen by her father sleeping on the balcony of the family's cabin between 5:15 a.m. and 5:30 a.m., but she was gone by 6 a.m. The ship's captain initially suggested she may have fallen overboard, and a 4-day search in the surrounding waters by the Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard found no trace of her. Her family had expressed skepticism about this theory, pointing out that she was a trained lifeguard and that no physical evidence of a fall or jump was found on the balcony. Also, if you watch the docuseries, the way the waters flow in towards land, like she would have eventually washed up, and she never washed up. Now, am I saying that's not possible? No. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it doesn't seem probable. This is the theory that I subscribe to, which is abduction and human trafficking. Because as much as we like to keep our head in the sand, this is happening all around us. I mean, there are restaurant owners in the area where I live that have been arrested for human trafficking. Just regular people that you think are normal are arrested for human trafficking. So the fact that an abduction and human traffic situation is suggested is not far-fetched. In fact, I think that it's the most viable situation. So this theory suggests that Amy was abducted from the ship, possibly by someone on board, and forced into human trafficking or captivity. This is the theory that's most widely supported by her family and many private investigators. So the evidence to this says there have been several alleged sightings of a woman believed to be Amy in the years following her disappearance, primarily in Curacao and Barbados. One U.S. Navy petty officer claimed a woman identifying herself as Amy Bradley approached him at a brothel in Curacao in January of 1999, pleading for assistance and saying she was being held against her will. In 2005, an anonymous tipster sent the Bradley family a link to a website with photos of a woman who resembled Amy, fueling the belief that she was trafficked. And then some witnesses claim to have seen Amy with Alistair, quote-unquote, Yellow Douglas, a musician on the ship, on the upper deck shortly before she vanished. So if you watch the documentary on Netflix, which I'll put a link in the details here, but that guy seems like he has something to do with it. I don't know, though. I mean, it's crazy. I definitely think that it's a possibility, and I think that it is so easy for things like this to happen on cruise ships because once people hit international waters, like, there's no law anymore. The law is what's on the ship. So, like, who's in charge at that point? Who do you go to? I mean, that is a scary situation to think about. I would not personally want to put my family in that situation. And, you know, I say that as somebody that's on a podcast here, and I don't think that I have enough viewers or listeners to make an impact on the cruise travel industry. I mean, I know my dad and his wife love cruises. I don't think anybody's kidnapping them, but I mean, you take your kids on these things, it's definitely possible. The third theory is a voluntary disappearance or foul play on board. So this encompasses basically the possibility that Amy voluntarily left the ship on her own, or that another person on board the cruise ship was involved in her disappearance, maybe related to the alleged sightings with the ship's musician. Some people say maybe she just was like, hey, I'm out of here. Some say she may have gotten off at the port in Curacao and stayed behind. Her shoes were left in the cabin, but her cigarettes and her lighter were missing. That suggests she didn't intend to go far and was maybe still close by. 2 women on the cruise reportedly saw Amy with a musician from the ship's band, this yellow guy, around 6 a.m., riding an elevator to the top deck shortly after her father saw her. Douglas was then seen alone a short time later. Douglas is Yellow. Yellow is his nickname. Douglas has maintained his innocence, obviously he has. But Fox News, and I'll put a link to this in the details of this as well, has come out with some new information. Obviously, since the disappearance has been spread more through that Netflix documentary, like hundreds of tips have come in on this 27-year-old case. So what Fox News is saying is the show's release brought in hundreds of new leads to the FBI and Bradley's family, with 3 very significant revelations, piquing the interest of investigators. While countless theories have circulated, like the 3 we talked about regarding Bradley's disappearance, investigators initially determined the recent college graduate likely fell overboard or jumped from the ship. That's the one that I think is least likely to have happened. However, her family has widely disputed both ideas and instead have looked to evidence suggesting Bradley may have been a victim of human trafficking while on board the ship. A source involved in the documentary has revealed evidence gathered after the show's production provides structure to the latter theory. According to the source, a female bar server on board the cruise ship has reportedly approached authorities to recount that on the night Bradley went missing, she was heard exclaiming to passengers and crew, "Senorita kidnapped, senorita kidnapped." Okay, so now it's becoming more apparent what's going on. The server reportedly did not speak much English and was promptly taken to the back of the restaurant by a bartender, according to the source. However, experts point to the importance of this revelation revolving around the statement was actually made and not just that it had been said. Quote, what would have been helpful is to know when did that account happen. Peter Valentine, chair of forensic science department at the University of New Haven and a former Connecticut State Police detective, told Fox News. When did this bartender make those statements, and did they precede everyone's knowledge of her disappearance? It's really the timing of the statement, not the disclosure. So he's possibly suggesting that this bartender is trying to make a claim at fame on this situation, maybe some type of notoriety to ride the coattails of a successful 3-part documentary on Netflix, I guess. Bradley ultimately disappeared after an evening at the ship's nightclub with her brother. Her father, Ron, last recalled seeing her sleep on the cabin's balcony, like I already said. So I think that one of the most compelling arguments to that she was abducted and was human trafficked is not only the people seeing her, but the fact that the family has a website where they update pictures and letters to Amy, like, we still love you, here's this, hey, remember this. And every year, and they say this on the documentary, every year, like on Christmas and her birthday and her parents' anniversary, there is a hit to the IP address. So when all these things happen, there's a hit to the IP address, and it's in the Curacao area. So I would say that she was kidnapped and human trafficked, and people say, well, if, this was 27 years ago, like, how are they still using her? Like, what does she leave? Well, I also believe that what if, and they kind of touch on this in the documentary, what if she at some point gave birth and then now her abductors are holding that child over her to continue to work in some way? I have no idea. But this is a case that is a crazy mystery. I hate this for this family. I cannot imagine being in their shoes, nor would I ever want to. Obviously, I wouldn't want this for anybody. I pray that tips keep coming in. I pray that somebody finds Amy or finds out what happened. And I pray that this family gets some closure on this. Knowing that she was human trafficked, knowing that she passed away, knowing that she fell over a balcony, knowing that she committed suicide. All of those are terrible, but they're still better than not knowing.